Test, test, test. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Near and Far podcast. We are going to the Duke Mayo Bowl. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Florida State getting the shaft.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about NCAA madness. People are losing their minds right now. Our men's soccer team is going to the College Cup. Our women's basketball team beat Penn State.
Yeah.
Our men's basketball team lost the backyard brawl. See how I put a couple positives in there before that one? You know, turn over a new leaf here. Yeah. So lots to talk about. Transfer portal. We'll get into all that. So yeah, I guess let's start with the Duke Mayo Bowl maybe. What were your guys' thoughts whenever it was announced?
I love mayonnaise.
Especially Duke's mayonnaise.
I'm just going to start there because I really do love mayonnaise.
I like Pop-Tarts more, but there's nothing I love more than a good guaranteed loan, though. Guaranteed rate on a loan.
Let me ask you guys about Pop-Tarts real quick because I'm just curious. Do you go heated or do you go not heated?
Who has time for heat and a Pop-Tart?
I just eat plain, straight up, no heat.
Optimal setting is heated, non-frosted, melted butter on top.
No frosting?
No frosting?
If you have that opportunity, if you're eating them cold, frosting is the best. But
I don't think I've ever had a Pop-Tart with no frosting in my life.
I'm telling you, try it. I also tear off the edges to the point where when I'm done tearing everything off the Pop-Tart, it's about the size of a quarter.
So when you tear them off, you don't eat the edges. You just discard the edges.
Correct. It's like
that's my favorite part. I like that little doughy, before you get to the filling.
But mayonnaise, man, I don't tear the edges off of mayonnaise. I
think Chad Turner was the first person I ever met who dipped French fries in mayonnaise.
I still do it.
Yeah, and I remember thinking that's fucking disgusting. And then I tried it.
Friend.
Yeah, then I tried it.
Tater tots.
Tater
tots are where it's at.
It's so good.
Well, Neil Brown, I heard he said that if he wins, he's going to take a bath in the mayo.
Oh, that's gonna be like the perfect meme for us for like all next year is him doused in mayo.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Right.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. I did not see that coming.
I don't know, man.
It was typically reserved for the SEC, right?
Right.
So they did a little swapping somewhere along the way.
It's like a two. I think it's one. I want to say it's one. It's at least one. I want to say maybe $2 million pay cut, like haircut, compared to like the Pop-Tarts Bowl. If you compare it to like Pop-Tarts. Someone shut that goddamn dog up.
$2 million pay cut's not good, but we're playing. The big thing for me, I like our opponent. Like we're playing a team, and we don't know about their quarterback or whatnot, but I feel like we're playing another 8-4 team. And being down here, I know that they're pretty disappointed. They had way higher expectations for their season.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We had low expectations. Yeah. They had high expectations. They were meeting in the middle, it looks like. They kind of went on a slide there toward the end of the season.
Yeah.
It's all going to matter on whether their quarterback plays. That's going to be a big difference.
Honestly, if I'm him, I get it. He's one of the top prospects, supposedly, and whatnot. But have you seen our secondary this year? Are you sure you don't want to show up to that game and put that on film against our secondary? Yeah. Throw for about 600 yards.
So, speaking of our secondary, as Hershey McLaren entered the portal, he won't be playing, obviously, right?
I would guess not. Most of the time when they enter the portal, they don't play, right?
There's a guy on our team named Hershey McLaren.
How am I just now learning about this?
Obviously, I've not paid much attention to the secondary.
Yeah, he played a lot of snaps too. So
Wilson Lamb snapped as well.
This is it's rematch, obviously, but also it's the same bowl, right? They just renamed it
Yes.
from that 2008 Pat's last
what was
game.
it called? The Meineke Car Care Bowl?
Meineke Car Care Bowl,
Yeah.
That was a barn burner. 31-30.
4-0 that game.
Yeah. Didn't North Carolina have somebody crazy? Am I remembering this right?
Yeah, they had the running back. Was it Hakeem Nicks? It was like
yeah.
Mm-hmm. He caught like everything. Stupidly.
Yeah. Well, it happened to us at Georgia Tech whenever Georgia Tech's starting quarterback was out. And
they had
Calvin
Megatron,
Johnson.
too.
Yeah.
He only had like 300 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like every time we played Pitt with Fitzgerald, you're like, he's going to have 300 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns, but we're still going to win.
Can we weather the storm?
Yeah.
I'm excited though, man. I like our opponent. I feel like we will. This will be a good gauge of if we go in there and lose, then like everything we've been kind of saying, like 8-4, blah. Like it feels like we really benefited from the schedule. Can very well be true. If we go in there and win, then maybe you can say, okay, like a lot of people had North Carolina at least playing for the ACC championship this year,
right?
So maybe we're okay. I mean, if you look at their recruiting classes, last 3 years, there's like top 15 recruiting classes. They have a lot of talent.
To kind of remind you of like
Mac Brown, baby.
Like when Gino, we started 5-0, 6-0, and then lost 5-0.
Super high expectation.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they had
they got banged up, right? Is that what happened? Like kind of mid-season? Did May miss a game or so, or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. They lost to Virginia, who's a bad team. Then they lost the next game to Georgia Tech, which is not great by any means. But I mean, I think they won about 500 this year. And then they lost to NC State and Clemson, I want to say. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out.
I think it depends. I mean, Drake May, like, does he play? Does he not? If he plays, like, I feel like win or lose, at least you're getting like their best shot. If he doesn't play and we lose, then that's like, I'm not trying to go ahead and like make, but I'd rather, if we're going to lose to them, I'd rather lose them at like full strength, right? Like with their starting QB, who's a NFL prospect versus.
Was it Liberty's coach that was bitching because Bo Nix was going to play in the, they got a New Year's Day Bowl.
Liberty's playing Oregon.
Liberty is playing Oregon.
Oh my gosh, that's so brutal.
Yeah,
and that was what was it? Liberty or it was SMU, right? Those were the two kind of who was going to get that higher ranking to take that spot for the.
Yeah, and then SMU lost their conference championship game, right?
No, they won it.
Who were they? Who am I thinking of?
They played Tulane, I think, and won. But the question was like they had lost 2 games, which I think both were Power 5. I mean, that was interesting, especially if you look at it, right? Because you can make an argument that it should have been SMU and not Liberty. I mean, Liberty's undefeated, but look who Liberty played, right? If you look at their schedule. Yeah. SMU lost a couple games, but they lost to Power 5.
That's
so if Liberty beats Oregon, can they have a share of the national title?
I don't think so.
They just declare it. They'll have like multiple national champions this year. You'll have Florida State, Liberty, and then the actual playoff winner.
What did you guys think of the whole Florida State fiasco?
Well, first of all, I thought it was interesting you brought that up, that the last time that an undefeated got left out was us because of Florida State.
Well, let me paint a picture.
Was that the
for
last
you, okay?
time?
I've got a little rant here. It was 1993. Donnie Nealon had the boys cooking. Okay, one of the best defenses in the country. Robert Walker was averaging 6 yards a carry. We had Thunder and Lightning with Jake Kelchner and Darren Studstill.
Jake the Snake.
We go through the 93 season undefeated, unblemished. We get left out of the national championship because a 1-loss Florida State makes it in ahead of us. Okay? How does it feel, Florida State? Florida State goes on to win the national championship, by the way. How is it? We won't talk about what happened to us in the Sugar Bowl. It was a bad matchup. Our boys weren't jacked up.
Is that the Darren Studstill sideways helmet game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But hey, what goes around comes around. Florida State. How's it feel? I mean, we were undefeated and got left out because you went in ahead of us, and now it comes around. And I guess my thoughts on it. First of all, I'm gonna have a hard time feeling sorry for them, but I think if the criteria is they want the best 4 teams, not the top 4 deserving teams, if they want the best 4 teams in the country to play, then Florida State was not one of the best 4 teams, in my opinion.
I agree, because I mean, you can even say the same about Georgia.
Yeah,
they've won 29 in a row or whatever until they lost to Alabama, but still, I mean, like, they don't play the meat and potatoes of the SEC.
Georgia's schedule was so bad that you couldn't put them in there, but they very well may be better than Texas. Like, if you're asking, like, it's possible that Georgia's like, and I hope that Georgia and Florida State is a real game where they really try, and because that'll be fascinating to watch. It might be my most fascinating matchup.
Yeah, see the 2 teams left out play head to head. That's at least they did that, you know.
Yeah,
they got something right. But I don't know whether both of those teams were. They didn't put up the same. They didn't have to play the same kind of schedule. That, like, I don't know. Alabama's just they're a completely different team the second half of the season.
Yes. Which, and so isn't Florida State. That's what it is. Like, Florida State is not the same team right now that beat LSU in the beginning of the season by, like, they were beating them bad. Like, they beat LSU bad. Florida State is not the same team now, and Alabama's not the same team that lost to Texas at the beginning of the season.
Right.
Their quarterback is night and day better.
Right. They went through 3 quarterbacks the first 3 games of the season, trying to figure out who they were going to play with. But you see a lot of these people, like, throwing up all these scores, like, Alabama squeaked by here, blah blah blah. But they squeaked by Auburn. That's a rivalry game. You can't.
Well,
yeah.
You never know how those are going to go. I don't care if Auburn is 3-8 going into that game.
we know how.
Yeah, well, we know. Yes, we know how that goes. Unfortunately, we're in the raw end of that one.
It was 2007. Rich Rod and the Boy Scouts. I'm not even. No, I'm not even.
I do think. I mean, I feel like the committee somewhat got an out, because I feel like the only people that are just outraged, if you will, right, is clearly the Florida State contingency. I mean, I thought it was like, oh, it sucks for them, man. Like, that's shitty. But it's like it's a moot point next year, right? Like, the expansion to 12 teams, you can't really bitch if you're like, the 12th team that got left out, right? And so,
yeah.
But I do think it would have been. I knew they weren't going to leave an SEC team out.
Yeah,
no way. There was no way.
Yeah. So I mean, I thought, and then once Texas won, if anything, I thought, does Texas go in or not? You know what I mean? Like, I thought for sure Bama's getting in as the champion, and hell, it wouldn't have surprised me if they left Texas and Florida State out and were like Georgia, Bama.
Yeah.
No,
it wouldn't have surprised me at all.
If Georgia would have won that game, I think that Texas gets out because they no longer have to put Alabama in. If Georgia wins that game against Alabama, they put Georgia in and Florida State's in my opinion. They couldn't put Alabama in without putting Texas in.
Yeah, you couldn't put the champion, right? You couldn't leave the SEC champion out of the fold.
Right.
Like, you could always have the champion plus another SEC team like they've done in the past, but you can't leave the champion out.
They ought to just go ahead and say these 3 spots are reserved for the other conferences. One of these is for the SEC.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you guys shared that graphic earlier this week in the text, right, of like the final CFP rankings, and I think it's Florida State was the only team out of the top 11 or 12
that aren't going to be Big Ten
or the SEC.
or will be, right, like in next year. And so, dude, that tells you everything you need to know. I mean, if people think there's not going to be, and I guess one thing I need to do on the homework side, and I don't know if they've kind of hammered it out yet, because I know there were the preliminary rules about how those 12 slots will be filled. I don't know if it's finalized completely yet, but like you can have like 8 teams from the Big Ten and SEC.
Yeah.
And it's like great for them, but everybody else I think is going to be as frustrated with the format when it's going to be loaded full of, Big Ten and SEC teams.
Yeah. Do you guys buy into the conspiracy stuff? Because I do think there is bias as far as they want good matchups. I think that TCU in that national championship last year hurt Florida State a little bit in this. But what's crazy about that is people forget that TCU beat Michigan to get to the national championship.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know, they didn't show up in the national championship 100%. But to say that TCU didn't deserve to be there was saying that Michigan didn't either, really. But anyway, I think that, first of all, if Florida State's quarterback hadn't been hurt, there's no way that Florida State gets left out, right? So how can you say there's a conspiracy? I think that they want good matchups. I think that it concerns me for a team like West Virginia, in that 12-man playoff. If we're a one-loss team, how are they gonna stack us up against an Ole Miss with 2 losses in the SEC? We're not.
Yeah.
You know, and they're prepared for that.
I cannot believe they did it. I mean, I thought if anything else, they had sufficient coverage this year from just hey, next year we're moving to 12 to actually, which again, did I think they'd ever do this? No, because they're the SEC. But I feel like they had enough kind of cover if they wanted to leave the SEC out this year, right? To have said, sorry, you know what I mean? It is what it is. You guys, you kind of split. Had it been Georgia, they'd have been in, but they didn't win. And so Florida State, you're undefeated, you're in. Texas, you're in. So of course they didn't do that. But if they were ever going to do it, this would have been the year I think they could have got away with it, and there wouldn't have been. Yeah, people would have complained and yelled or whatever, but you at least had more of a justification. I cannot believe, honestly, that they left Florida State out. I mean, I get it, the quarterback piece of it, but then you're saying it's all about matchups, like you said, right? You're just trying to put the best product out there for the playoff, as opposed to saying who are the 4 most deserving, or at least, I mean, they won ugly, but their defense was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, with this logic, does that mean that you could lose the first 3 games of the season because your quarterback was suspended, and then he comes back and you win out?
That's what I mean.
And you get into the playoff because, hey, you lost those 3 games because you didn't have your starting quarterback, but now it's clear that you're one of the best teams. No, that would never go that way.
It's like they changed the logic, right? You changed the game. You changed the rules in the middle of the game, especially, at least as it relates to one pick. I mean, I would have loved to have seen even more chaos, quite honestly. I would have loved to have seen a train wreck full of 1-loss teams and undefeated
Washington
teams.
Had lost.
Yeah, if you had 7 or 8 1-loss teams, obviously Ohio State would get in just because they're Ohio State. I was surprised that they didn't get bumped up higher than what they did, but there wasn't a lot of room. There wasn't a lot of room.
Big Ten sucked this year. I mean,
sucks every year, but people think that it's the greatest. But you have,
I think
you have
the
3
SEC,
teams.
Honestly, I mean, you look at Georgia's division, right, and who they beat, and at the beginning you're oh, Georgia's Georgia, and it's hard not to be Georgia's Georgia when you're carrying a consecutive national championship and undefeated seasons into it. It's hard to not, but if you really analyze it just year by year and forget about that, and now go look at their record, they were undefeated, and that's something. But Florida State was undefeated, so let's put Georgia's up next to Florida State's, and say again, we didn't have to in that case, but going into the championship game. Is Georgia really remarkably better? I mean, their best win would have been against Alabama in the championship game.
Maybe they need to start having floating conferences, so the top 10 recruiting classes have to play in a conference together, and they can really dog it out.
Well, I think we're heading there.
Yeah,
I think we're heading there.
You've got you do have Georgia and Alabama that have top 10 recruiting classes every year. You've got Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and then there's the rest of the conferences.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really say oh, the SEC is the best, by far the best conference. Well, yeah, they have a couple of the best teams in the country, but top to bottom, I mean, really.
Yeah. I don't know. Man.
I just don't know that you can say that they're like by far the best.
I'm over the whole. I mean, don't get me. I feel like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like we've talked about, it's like the SEC, but again, how much of that is because that's what we say every year? Like a self-fulfilling, like, well, the SEC is the toughest, so we always end up with the SEC person in the playoff or in the BCS Bowl era. And
it does get ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the conference thing is generally bullshit. Like, I mean, yes, off years, right? A certain conference will be super stout, another one will be down, they'll be up. Like they change, they flex, but we'll see. I'm curious to see how Texas and Oklahoma do in year one in the SEC.
I heard I haven't got to look at it, but somebody said that Georgia's schedule for 24 leaked, and it doesn't look as favorable as it has for them in the past.
They're out of conference. Georgia Tech was the only FBS out of conference opponent.
They do that every year. That's the thing.
And then they have that bye week.
Where they go play an FCS school in the late end of the season.
Georgia's schedule was a joke. It really was. Like, granted, they had to they finished the year strong. They had to play, obviously Alabama and then in the SEC championship. But Georgia's schedule was a joke. That's what makes me like. Florida State scheduled LSU
they play
and Florida.
An 8-game conference schedule, right?
Yes.
They play an 8-game conference schedule. What other conference? I mean, maybe does the Big Ten? I mean, we play 9, obviously, but I think most play 9, right? It's usually 9 conference games, and you're 3 non. They play an 8.
So Georgia played 3 FCS opponents this year. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, they may. Let me see who they played. Yeah, I mean, they definitely have 4 non-conference games. They played Tech, like you said.
Georgia Tech, I'm pretty sure, was the only FBS.
Are you guys ready for their schedule next year? They got to play Clemson, Alabama, Auburn, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee.
That's pretty brutal.
That's pretty brutal.
You can talk about the SEC all you want, but like that's pretty brutal. I mean,
but they didn't have that same schedule this year.
No, they didn't.
Here's who they played this year out of conference, Dylan. UT Martin to open it up, 48-7. Ball State, 45-3.
That might be FBS. I don't know where they fall, but that's not a Power 5.
Is that a MAC team?
No,
it's not a Power 5.
UAB, which also not Power 5, right? Like 49-21. And then they go on and Tech, like Georgia Tech. That's so 3 non-Power 5 games, and then
meanwhile, Florida State played LSU and Florida out of.
That's what I'm saying. You put those 2 resumes beside each other at that point, and you ignore the fact that like the starting QB's out, which I think you should just say results. And then you look like I don't know. I mean, they still play Vandy. You know what I mean? You act like they always act like the SEC, but it's like there's some people in the SEC that are kind
Arkansas
of
Arkansas was not good. BYU beat Arkansas, right?
South Carolina was trash this year.
South Carolina was bad.
Yeah.
Florida was down.
Yeah,
Florida was bad.
Missouri, I mean, that was that's probably a legit win based on kind of how Missouri finished out.
Yeah, Auburn, I don't know, man.
Mississippi State.
It definitely it definitely scares me a lot. Like looking at like if you look at the top 12 teams right now, all from what next year will be the Big Ten or the SEC, except for Florida State. Do you think Florida State does this accelerate? We've heard for years that Florida State and Clemson are leaving the ACC. Does this accelerate Florida State leaving?
So I thought that initially too, and I still think I do overall. But the question is, how does the 12 team play out, right? At least in the first couple of years, because if it ends up being top heavy, like 8 teams from the Big Ten and the SEC, then absolutely, because think about that. That money's coming in, right, for those teams collectively as a conference, right, and then getting divvied out. So if they're raking in playoff money, 4 teams or more from the conference, and then divvying that out, then that's even further increasing what's already a dramatic TV rights split, so the rich will get richer. Big 12 is interesting. I think Big 12's got the right guy in charge now currently.
We seem on much better footing than the ACC. And I've heard rumors actually that what you might see is an ACC Big 12 merger. Maybe that's just wishful thinking on my end. but that's what I've heard is like you could see Clemson and Florida State leaving, UNC and maybe Virginia, or UNC maybe Duke leaving, and then the rest of the teams get absorbed into the Big 12, and there's a Big 12 ACC merger with an East and West part of the conference.
Yeah, I mean, I think is it Yormack? I think's his last name. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but that dude, I mean, he's a salesman, which I think is like what you need in this.
Well,
era,
I think this
right,
year, either the Big 12 or the Pac-12 were going to collapse.
Yeah,
that was going to happen to one of those conferences this year, and it was the Pac-12, which was
his WWE stuff too. It's really interesting, right? Because he's viewing it more like it's entertainment, right? It's not just football. It's like how do I partner and do these things? The WWE kind of sponsorship marriage is very interesting.
Undertakers,
yeah, because he's targeting. He's to me, I think he's playing chess, right? Which I'm not saying the other conferences aren't, but it's like, how do I get more people to watch football, right? Everything's always been traditional, like, well, what's their alumni base? What's their state size, right? He's like, if I can get the people that watch WWE, yeah, there's naturally a Venn diagram of like overlap between football fans and wrestling fans, but there's going to be football fans and vice versa. So like, what other markets can we tap into to pool and get people interested in football that maybe, haven't been college football fans? It's curious. I still can't believe the Pac-12 is dead.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very sad. Very, very sad. Were we talking about the Duke Mayo Bowl?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's like went on a tangent.
Yeah. So, we're gonna do bowl pick'ems, not this episode, but maybe like an episode, like we do another episode before the bowl game. We do a bowl pick'em.
Yeah. Who do you think? So you guys sent the meme around, which was hilarious. The conference call between Norvell and Kirby Smart. Like who looks less enthused to be in this bowl? But that is curious. Like, I feel like that game could be great because it's two teams, or it could
whenever
be
you stepped
just
away,
awful,
I was like, that's the one I'm the most excited for.
Is there any motivation, right? Because it's like, I don't know, are they really into moral victories? I'm sure Kirby Smart isn't after having 2 national championships. I mean, maybe Norvell is because it's still a rising, kind of a thing. But man, I feel bad for that dude because doing all the right things, building that program back, going undefeated, like you've done it all, and then you get just shit on, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a thing where this guy said Florida State should take their team, go down to Miami.
I saw that.
Have a good time, get all the gifts, do all the stuff, show up at the game, walk out onto the field, and then not play the game and make ESPN scramble.
Did you guys watch the selection show? Because I don't watch nearly like we used to, right? In college where it was like 24/7, ESPN and game day.
When
and
we
everything.
were part of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's part of the reason I don't watch as much. Yeah. But I thought it was really interesting, like that they got into some like pretty fiery debate, like Reese Davis like had to get, like pretty, he's pretty level, I feel like, tried to get like very different, like, and then the other guys are like, well, don't say we. When you're saying we, you're trying to bring, and it was like clearly some division on just that panel between that decision with Florida State.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, ESPN is partly, if not entirely, to some degree to blame for the current state of college football and where things are heading. I mean, it's like, it's all the TV money, right? That's ruined. I'm not saying ruined, still a good product, but
Well, if you want to put on the tinfoil hat and go like a little deeper down the rabbit hole, if you look at the top 12 teams right now, again, you can even include Florida State in this. They're all the blue blood programs. They're all the big TV markets. They're all the teams that ESPN would want to be in the top 12. Okay. Yeah. And so is this maybe a result of like 2 years into the NIL and these transfer rules, and we've already arrived at the point where they have eliminated enough variables to where the Boise States, the West Virginias, the NC States and stuff like that will no longer be a part of the national conversation because they have now stacked the deck to the point where these blue blood programs can simply outspend everybody and not give them a chance.
Well, I mean, you've got like you just said, they've got all this money to spend, but they're still losing players. Like Oklahoma's quarterback, Ohio State's quarterback. Like, if those guys cannot keep players on their roster, then like, how are we going to ever? We might like. We're still waiting to hear if Jaheim White's going to hang around.
I think the difference is too. I think you're right as far as what it means for West Virginia, for sure, and it's not good. But I do think the difference, right, is like an Ohio State is just going to go plug in another guy, right? Like they're going to go get another awesome quarterback from somewhere else.
That's probably why he left. Is because
his
coach was like, listen, we're going to go to the portal.
Yeah,
and
he
try to
wasn't
find
very
a different
good.
quarterback. Right.
Yeah. That's and they know. I mean, that's the thing too. And also, that's the deal with oh gosh, why am I blanking? What's the other guy, big name that put his name in the portal this
Gabriel?
week? Yeah, Gabriel. Like if you look, essentially it's that this freshman phenom's nipping at his heels, and Lebby is going to Mississippi State, right, as the head coach, and that's really his guy. That's who brought him there on his first transfer. So that part of it's interesting because you're like, are people now? Maybe that's good. I mean, you've empowered the athlete, and so maybe the athletes, at the end of the day, it's money and it's not the schools. And so if an individual player can get a better deal elsewhere or hitch their wagon to their offensive coordinator or their quarterback coach and go wherever, then, but at the end of the day, who's got money, who doesn't? And that's going to be a problem.
I saw a thing today that I don't remember their names. There was a guy for Ohio State that was making more money through his NIL than this running back that's a starting running back in the NFL. And it's
do you know how much Brock Purdy is making right now? He's leading the MPV discussion in the NFL. He's making $800,000 a year. They've already said a quarterback, a good quarterback on the portal is between $1 and $2 million.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like this is insane. This is not sustainable. And what's crazy about this compared to the NFL is like NFL, an owner pays a salary. If the team's good, they sell more tickets, they sell more beer, they sell more jerseys, and that you get a return on that investment. This money that's going to the athletes is coming from donors / people who want to sponsor them, I guess you could say, like Toothman Ford or whatever. Like, if we go undefeated next year and go to national championship and win it, Toothman Ford doesn't get a penny of that. Like, so how long can this last? Like, the well in West Virginia is going to be dry at some point. And I just don't know what that looks like.
It's be a good time to should recognize our sponsor, Toothman Ford.
This episode is sponsored by the Players Club. Good times, good beers, good friends.
Oh my God!
Our friend's restaurant.
So
come early bird special.
We'll have to dig deeper because I don't know enough about it to speak with any real authority. But looking at the NCAA's current president's proposal or pitch for kind of, which is comical to me, right? These guys have sat on their hands this entire time. It took a lawsuit, right, to even get them moved into NIL territory. They still were steadfast in the fact that the NIL had to be run through a trust and the schools themselves couldn't. And now they're going to propose, right, that schools can pay. But if that happens, I think that it's going to make it even worse because his proposal, like he talks about kind of a subdivision, if you will, of the, he referred to it as like there's the top 100 Division I schools and then there's like 250 others. And his proposal was like this kind of upper tier would have to have like, I think $30,000 or something per athlete. And it's like, I don't know. Can we do that? You know what I mean? Like, are we going to be in this, if they adopt something like that, are we going to even be in like just an NCAA tier to compete at that level? And how does that then, and assuming they adopt it, they probably, there's going to be obviously lots of time to talk about that, but how does that cascade down? Do we end up not even through the conferences, but through some NCAA reorganization and structure end up getting further screwed to some degree?
Man, if we joined the Big 12 for nothing and just watched us get our asses beat over the last, however many years, only to get sent to the cellar by the NCAA. See, the threshold I heard was $100 million of athletic revenue, which somebody went through the Big 12 and like listed the programs that would get it. Oklahoma State is on like the cusp. We're not even. I don't even think we're like really. We're even close. So,
and I think that is the multiple. I think what they're doing is taking his $30,000 figure, right, and multiplying it out across the various sports and athletes, and then saying like, where would you have to be from a budgetary standpoint to kind of meet that threshold? That's a lot of money.
That is, and
on
again,
an annual basis. Like, I mean, and that's the thing too. I don't know how that works because, like, if you've got an athlete, like, are we talking about 30,000 per athlete per year? Or is it like 30,000 for the athlete over their college career? Right.
That's a great question. That's what's so weird about this. Right now, a senior is worth less than a freshman. That's why Jaheim White is so scary with him. He's got 3 years of eligibility left.
Yeah.
So like you can pay him, but like for a senior to come in, like you would pay him less than a Jaheim White because there's only 1 year there. So it's really strange the way it works. I don't feel good about it at all. I don't know, man. Any way you slice it, it doesn't look great for West Virginia's like long term. Like where are we going to be in 20 years? And what's really unfortunate, I think that's why like I don't want to bring this back to Neil Brown needs fired, but I'm going to. But that's what's been so hard about handling the Neil Brown mediocrity and less than mediocrity, I guess you could say, is that we've been not good in the most vulnerable time that we could possibly have been in the history of college football. Yeah. And if there was ever a time we needed to be in the national conversation, it's been the last few years. And
I mean, sports generally, right? I mean, I think the major sports programs, so the ones that drive the cash and the TV and the viewership, and like we haven't done. I mean, yeah, obviously we've talked ad nauseum about Neil and our thoughts there, but also Huggins, like previously on the basketball side, I think relatively, like 1 year, 20, maybe was it 20? We had like a little run, but the university is hemorrhaging money, right? I mean, that's the thing is typically you put all your eggs in the facilities and the sports and the programs basket because at the end of the day, they end up making you money, right? That then tenfold, 20-fold, like our WVU is in trouble, right? It's just an institution where they just, went through this insane kind of right sizing of cutting programs, cutting staff, right? And you don't have that. I mean, yes, you've got some coming in, but like you said, where could we have been making money, with some level of success? And so if you're spending all this money on sports and the money's not coming back in, and the college itself, whose sole goal is supposed to be to educate student athletes and and students, not to be a sports kind of generator, then I think beyond the sports programs, the school as a whole could be in some trouble.
My question though is how much does a good athletics program affect enrollment? I'm sure it has a positive effect on it. A rising tide lifts all boats or ships, or whatever that saying is. And so is part of the problem university wide with this budget the fact that we don't have as much notoriety on a national stage? Like I imagine like a basketball recruit, for example, whenever Rich Rod was going crazy, and maybe it's John Beeline's first year. A basketball recruit gets a letterhead from West Virginia. We've been good in football for the last 3 years in the national conversation. That letterhead with the West Virginia logo on it means something. Even if there's a recognizing factor there where you look at that and be like, oh, West Virginia, like they've got a good athletics program. Their football team is nasty. I'm gonna look at this, and maybe that helps get you in the door to more recruits for basketball and other sports as well. I've always wondered that.
I kind of think there's some peripheral benefit, right, on it. Certainly on the athletic part, feeding the athletics, but I think on the the larger school, if nothing else, if it's just money, right? Like even if it's not kind of branding and awareness and enrollment, but if it's just the money overflowing from the coffers of the athletics program coming in can then be redistributed to the educational side of it to boost, that side of it. Because I mean, let's think about it. Like, granted, there's names on all the buildings, not just the athletics buildings, but if you think about some of the biggest donations, certainly in like our time to the university as a whole, most of those are earmarked for athletics. And so they you got to hope that you get that return on investment so that it actually gets back to the university and then helps impact the educational side of it. Not to say we haven't. I know Kendrick's been very involved in the educational side as well. Trying to remember who's our like software donor, who's got his name, I think, over on, the engineering side of things. But certainly, I'm sure, and these numbers should be available, right? If we looked at like what's the annual, philanthropic receipts for the university foundation, just academics
What did you
versus
just call me?
philanthropics. It's got to be bad though. I mean, I think if the school's hurting, that's a reflection that the athletics program is hurting. I'm not saying one causes the other, but as you said, like there's some nexus between the two. The Atlantic had an article of which I'd love to tell you I read, but since I don't have a subscription and don't want to buy one, I'll just leave you with the article
First paragraph
headline, which is what happens when a poor state guts its public university. And I'll let you guys decide what university and state that's about. So that probably just succinctly tells you everything you need to know about where we stand.
Yeah, times aren't good. Have you thought about joining the Country Roads Trust? I think they need you now more than ever.
Trust the trust. Did you make that up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Trust the trust.
Trust the trust.
The trust.
Yeah.
Surely.
Kick the climb. Kick the climb. Trust the trust.
So speaking of like numbers, how are we going to put people in seats in Charlotte when we don't put people in seats in Morgantown?
Or not. That's the short answer.
It makes no sense to me.
Dude, you know what's crazy? Remember the Continental Tire Bowl?
Yeah.
They had that like gathering right in town, and we were there, and Rich Rod got up on the mic and was like, last one out of West Virginia, turn out the lights.
Yeah.
Like, what a different time. Now we're like, we will give you free tickets and a 5-gallon jug of mayo if you come.
It's changed, man, dramatically. I think too. I don't know how much of it works its way into the bowl games, but it sucks not being tied regionally to a conference, right? Where you can actually travel and potentially go to a road game or a couple of road games. At least we had a couple of games this year that were drivable back to bringing Penn State back in the fold, maybe Maryland in the future. But listen, it's a necessary evil. I'm glad we're in a conference. I'm glad we're, in a competitive conference. It's actually nationally relevant, but it still makes no sense that we're part of the Big 12. From just a geographics. I mean, yes, we added a few teams on the East Coast, but it still is, the old remnants of the Southwest, the Big Eight. It's just bizarre. But I mean, shit, you got UCLA and USC going to, Happy Valley
Rutgers.
now. At
Going to Rutgers.
Cal is in the ACC next year, right?
Stanford.
SMU,
yeah.
And Stanford?
Yeah. Stanford as well.
So what about Oregon State and Washington State?
Mountain West, baby.
Yeah, it sucks, man. Mountain West has always been, like, in my view, or at least had been for the longest time, the kind of cream of the crop of the non, Power Five.
And I don't think they're officially
TCU was
joining
the flag bearer previously, and then
BYU was in there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Colorado State has had some good years. But yeah, I don't think they're officially joining the Mountain West. I think they're just playing a Mountain West schedule, kind of like Notre Dame and the ACC. But yeah,
Dude,
I don't know.
that was so telling. Like, Oregon State. It's just, I think we know how that feels because that's where we were when the initial, conference realignment happened, right? When we just thought, oh my God, like we're going to be left out. We're going to be like in some American, the American or something and be not relevant anymore. So I feel terrible for the Washington State and the Oregon State. But Oregon State to get the shaft, not get a conference affiliation, and then lose your coach who is an alum of your school, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just and a great coach. Like that's like a Rich Rod, but except Rich Rod didn't have a reason to be like, "Hey, sorry guys, but you're not in the conference anymore. I got to leave."
And if Rich Rod had left and we went to the Sun Belt in the same
all in
year,
the same year, lost to Pitt, Rich Rod left. Hey, you guys are in the Sun Belt.
I
think I'd still be living in a trailer park in Morgantown if all that happened.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I don't know if we don't, Chad. If we don't travel to Charlotte for this bowl, like we're just not going to, right? Like this is a 5-hour drive, like even less than that from some parts of the state. This is in between, Christmas and New Year's. Like, it is on like a Wednesday, which is a bit weird. I think it's on a Wednesday, but still, a lot of people have that time off, and I really hope that we do travel because if we don't,
I would like to see it. Like to see it.
Plus, they went out on a limb and picked us too. Like,
yeah, right.
I didn't realize that it was less money than the Pop Tarts Bowl, but who says we were going to the Pop Tarts Bowl?
Right.
And to me, this is a blessing. Like, this is one of the, like the best things that's happened to West Virginia in a while. It feels like.
Yeah, I agree.
You guys want to talk about the backyard brawl?
No.
Okay, so our basketball team sucks. It's just. Our basketball team is not
Kerr's
good.
Back.
Kerr's back. But like, and that kind of plays into the whole NIL conversation. Is like, how much did we spend on this basketball team? And like that's what's so crazy. There's like we don't know anything about how much people are being paid. We don't know what their contract says. Does Raekwon Battle make money if he doesn't play at all this year? How does all that look? We don't know. And from all reports, before Huggins went crazy, like this basketball team cost a lot of money. That's what everybody was saying. It's like we finally ponied up and we went into the transfer portal and we're paying for these players. Well, here we are. Those players got paid and we're not getting anything out of it. Like, this is not good.
Well, I think Perez was going to be part of that, right? So, like, it's hard to account for that. We didn't think Kerr was going to miss any time. That all came out after the fact. And then Rakeem, which is ridiculous still, I think. That's the part that pisses me off. We talked about a little bit last time. It's like you've got the NCAA focused on now proposing paying people, right? They're trying to be we're ahead of the time now. It's just dramatic. And then there's this guy that by I think most accounts, including like when Van Pelt's talking about it on ESPN now, right? They've acknowledged he meets the mental health like requirements. It's just like, why West Virginia? Okay, we acknowledge you have mental health issues that would otherwise deem you qualified for a waiver, but most people who have that want to move, close to home and be around their home. And he's pretty much said, my home situation is what got me mental health issues. Like, it didn't help it. I feel comfortable where I'm at. I've got good support. Like the fact that, it's just ridiculous.
And Josh Eilert spent time on a reservation. That's the connection here, is that Josh Eilert can relate to what he grew up in and what, and that whole aspect of his life. And that's why West Virginia is because he connected with Josh Eilert and the coaching staff and they made him feel comfortable here.
Also, are you a fucking doctor? You know what I mean? That's the thing too. It's like, stay in your lane, man. If they meet the requirements, who cares where they want to go at that point? If they've got a legitimate justification and they can show that they have a great support network around them where they're at, you're all about the student athlete and their health and well-being, except when you're not. That's all to say. It could have been a dramatically different team, right, than like the product we've seen now. I mean, I do think there's some bright spots. Like Slazinski, like that guy a lot.
Yeah.
Edwards is great.
He's all that's advertised. He's definitely good. But
and I'm curious to see what happens when Kirk comes back, at least to add some depth. But
hopefully he can make 9 3-pointers in a game.
Or just one.
Jesus.
like one.
We'll take one.
Like, come on, dude.
That was rough to watch last night. It was hard to watch. Our defense is just like
our defense is bad. Yeah.
But that dude was shooting lights out. But still, God, we cannot shoot. We
can't.
You also got to think. And I thought this the other day when I looked at the bench when, kind of like rolled it. And everybody knows this because you know who's on the staff. But I get it. It's like Eilert's got a year, right? Maybe he gets more, but there's no guarantee. He's an interim coach with an interim tag. Practically the staff, including, I think Everhart's still there, right? But was Everhart brought back? Or I don't know what the Everhart piece or whatever was going on there. But like no assistant coaches, right, with like any level of kind of weight or credibility, we're going to come over here and play for a non-guaranteed future, or be part of the staff. So you've got, besides Eilert, who has no head coaching experience, you've now got a bunch of assistants who don't even have assistant experience.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
from just
a couple of them graduated like last year.
Yeah, Jordan McCabe, I think, is still eligible to play if he wants to. So, I mean, I'm not knocking him. Obviously, the guys know basketball, right? And I'm sure they'll be great coaches at some point if that's their interest. But it's just point to any other team at the Division I level that has that staff, right, assembled, and then has like a great team. Yeah,
it's like you want to love them, but like
love them all as players. You're just going, this is probably all they could do, right? Like that's why they brought in a bunch of guys, former players that would jump at the opportunity to coach, but also just know that it might just be a year, right? Like that could be it.
Our women's basketball team is good though. And
dude, that guy is looking like a great hire right now.
Okay, and is this the light at the end of the tunnel? Because that was Rim Baker's first hire, right?
Yeah.
And we're 8-0 right now, and this is looking So we might have ourselves an AD, boys.
Yeah,
we might have ourselves somebody who can get us.
That dude is everywhere. I will say, like, watch the Cup. When it's on this weekend, tomorrow. You watch football, you watch like he is there. And not just like, I mean, Shane would be there, like you kind of see him over in his box or up, like he's like down on the court, he's down on the field, like he's
running the possession era.
He was helping set the chairs up. Yeah,
he's old school, baby. He's old school. Yeah, I like it. So I mean, to me, that's somebody that's actually like got a finger on the pulse of what's going on, which is actually why I think long term I trust him in the decision he's going to make with respect to football. What are you laughing at? Finger on the pulse?
Just because of the
I didn't say it was like he was, his butt was puckered and bleeding.
I think that's why it's funny because we went there last week that now we can't say anything about fingers.
About anything, evidently.
We gotta stay.
Juvenile behavior. Word.
It's a good indicator for Ren. I'm happy for the women's basketball team. But yeah, men's college cup.
Yeah.
We're in the Final Four. I watched the game against ULM to get us there. We got a chance to win this thing. We really do.
Do you know? So I don't follow soccer a ton, obviously. I didn't even realize there was a cup. Like, I mean, I knew there was obviously a championship, but I didn't realize there was kind of a, two semis like cup thing going on. But does anybody know the stories of like the others? Because the one thing that surprised me just seeing the marquee of the matchups was Oregon State's unranked on a national level.
Well, were they unranked or are they like, do they have the rankings beside our name? Like, what are we ranked?
Yeah.
Or is it seeds?
Well, no, because there's nothing by Oregon State. and I'm assuming it was like what they because it. I mean, because it's let's see. They would have to have a seed, right? If it was just part of the tournament seeding, there was just nothing by them. Let's see, College Cup. Let's see. Here we go. I gotta find
my brother lives in Morgantown. I think you guys know that, but him like they go to the games all the time, the soccer games. Like they have a lot of fun with it, and I think I love watching soccer. Like if I'm involved with a team, like whenever Messi came to Inter Miami, I watched all those games.
Yeah,
it was fascinating to watch. Like that was awesome. So
we got
I'll be watching the College Cup.
We got a 5 by West Virginia, which I think was our national ranking entering the
either that or the C. Yeah, okay.
And then Clemson's 9, Notre Dame's 2, and then Oregon State doesn't have anything. Which I'm assuming, which was kind of interesting.
Maybe they came in unranked and have just made their way to the final.
Got on fire.
That's possible.
So we play Clemson tomorrow at 5:00 my time.
And then North Carolina is one of the teams, right?
Just Oregon State, Notre Dame on the other side of the bracket, us and Clemson on this side. Yeah. And we're in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, which is weird. But you know what?
All of the teams are in. All the good teams are in the Sun Belt.
Yes. Yeah. But our women's soccer team is in the Big 12. How crazy is that? Like if that's not the perfect. That's what college sports are now.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and we don't even. Yeah, exactly. And we don't have. Maybe we will eventually. I've always found this curious, but because softball is such a big thing in the Big 12, right? Like Texas, there's then Oklahoma. Granted, now they're SEC, but it's like we haven't had a softball program, right? And there's been no effort to kind of, at least as far as I can tell, to grow one since we joined the Big 12, which has been some years now. How's golf doing? I feel like they're kind of competitive-ish now, right?
I feel like they weren't. They started off pretty decent this year, but I don't know.
I think their course is Pete Dye, right? I remember reading like one of the recruits is like, "Why did you choose West Virginia for golf?" He's like, "Because I could play at Pete Dye every day." Pretty cool.
I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty.
It's
nice.
not Meadow Ponds.
Meadow Ponds.
Now that would be awesome. Actually, you're like, welcome to West Virginia. Yeah.
Oh, you don't need a cart where we're going.
Is that place still operational?
No, it's a housing development. It's there are houses everywhere over there now.
I'm shocked. That seemed like a
I can't believe they weren't making money on that golf course. To sell it off, just build a bunch of houses.
They weren't making they weren't spending money on the golf course. That's for sure. They're like a one riding lawnmower.
It may have been like $10 though. They weren't like charging anything. I think was maybe the problem there.
Yeah, sometimes you go up there and be like, "I don't have change for a 20. Just go ahead."
Yeah, you're okay. Just don't mind the spray paint. It's fresh.
Ugh.
You hit the ball right down the fairway, and you're like, I have no idea where my ball is.
Yeah,
right. Not because it was like it's just the grass was that high. Like,
the fairway was like clover.
Yeah, they couldn't get the mower over there this week. It's too wet.
Yeah, man. I'm excited for the College Cup. I'm excited for the Duke Mayo Bowl. Transfers. Chad, do you still have that article of like or that list of people like who's confirmed staying? Because that was good news. Yeah, who do we know is staying?
Ray.
Dude, so excited about Cole Taylor. That guy's a stud.
So Traylon Ray, Cole Taylor.
There were 3 offensive linemen, but
I
got to get their names. I don't know if I have.
Milam, I guess would be one, or Milam, whatever. Okay. And
yeah, I think what is it, Remick? Is that how you pronounce it?
I don't know. It's not a good sign though if we don't.
Thomas
Remac or Remake or maybe it's Remac. I don't know. Isn't Coulter? He announced that's our linebacker, right? Coulter that said he was going to stay. So that's good news.
Yeah,
obviously
good stuff. I mean, at least there hasn't, knock on wood, there hasn't been like a major hemorrhaging, of
Right.
multiple names. Although the news today on the D-back side,
yeah,
that's concerning. Since that's not exactly been a position of strength for us.
Yeah, Yates was the other one.
Yates. Okay. I wonder though, with the D-backs, is that a result of us saying, hey, we're hitting the portal hard for defensive backs. You're not going to be a starter next year. Like if it goes our way, we're going to get defensive backs in here that will be better than you.
What is Beanie's
and so you need to leave.
Year.
He was a senior, I think, right?
Was he?
I think he was. Yeah.
Year.
Fox is staying and Trotter's staying.
Okay. Oh yeah, Trotter. That's what
I think in my mind, two of the key people potentially that we've not heard anything about, right, are that I'd like to hear from CJ and White and Jaheim. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about him. But I feel like CJ's the type of person.
I think Dylan's got a little man crush on Hudson Clement.
Hey, he's a West Virginia boy. Not numbers.
You're right. No, you're right.
Pay the boy. I mean, he was a walk-on. He got a scholarship. Let's throw him
I think
throw him a new car.
Frazier, I was kind of interesting to know. I mean, I don't know why he would, right? But when he got hurt, I was like, oh, is that going to change? Because he had another year potentially, right? I think pretty positive. He could have come back and played.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't sound like he's made no statements that indicate that he's not gone, right, and preparing for the NFL. But I just initially thought, hey, maybe he's hurt. Like maybe that'll change his kind of equation. Beanie is a redshirt junior.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that means anymore, though. You know what I mean? With all these redshirt senior. Yeah, so he's gone. Okay.
Well, that sucks. He was our lockdown corner.
Yeah.
Beanie Island.
He's a beanie.
Well, I feel like CJ's somebody that's going to shop. I feel like that he's got that in him.
For sure. I don't know. I don't know the guy at all, and there's a lot of great things I've heard about like him in that running backs room, right, and kind of like mentoring Jaheim and kind of being, but just outward expression of like attitude this season just seemed like a dude that was mad at the world a lot, ripping the helmet off, doing just kind of out of character stuff. It wasn't the same guy I saw last year.
Right.
Granted, it was the whole season.
I think the conundrum with him would be last year he got paid. Like, I think that clearly happened in the offseason. Is after his freshman year, he did the whole thing where he removed WVU from his Instagram or whatever. We got scared. He got paid to stick around. Well, now Jaheim White is probably the starter next year, right? So
I would think that if they're both there, they're going to be splitting. If not, he's going to have the majority of the carries for sure.
Right. So what happens if we're like, listen, man, we can't pay you the same money we paid you last year because we got
to give some to him now.
We got to give some to him. Yeah. So he's either going to have to take less money or go somewhere else. And I don't know. I think what this all comes down to is somebody's got to want them for more money too. If we still are going to offer them the same amount of money and nobody else is ponying up more, then surely he stays, right?
But I mean, if you have to choose between the two, you've got two other running backs that are decent running backs. So I mean, I like both of them.
That's a crowded room.
I feel like
that's
they
what I
both
was
have
curious.
like different things to offer us because CJ's more of a power runner, White's more of a
I'm surprised
explosion.
One of those other guys doesn't leave. Honestly,
yeah, like Johnson.
I mean, that's just a lot of guys for one room for sure.
Right. Yeah,
and maybe
they've shown that they have the ability to play at this level. So
it's just not touches, like right? I mean, it's just
right.
There's not enough touches for that many guys.
I feel like if you put any one of those four in, you're not going to be disappointed.
Well, maybe that's good. Maybe, in the sense that if Jaheim White does leave, maybe we'll still be all right.
Because
It wouldn't
Jalen
be.
Anderson and Justin Johnson, I think, are
Yeah.
both still
Yes.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, personally, I wouldn't.
Jaheim showed the most where you're just lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I hate
You
to
never
say
know
it
consistently,
but I feel like a lot of it rides on CJ's attitude this year is why I feel this way. But
dude,
if any of them are going to leave, then if CJ left, I'll be okay with it.
Me too.
I'd love to see a backfield with the Garrett, Jaheim, and CJ in there at the same time, kind of like a Slayton.
Yeah, instead of running 5 wide, let's run 4 in the backfield.
Yeah, let's go old school, baby. Diamond formation.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to see a Sports Illustrated college football cover, right? Like the Pat, Slayton, Schmidt cover, but I want to see it with Garrett, CJ, Jaheim.
Yeah.
Man. Well, all they need to do is be outstanding for about 2 more years, setting records, and that might happen. I mean, I think Garrett might have some Heisman buzz next year.
If that list that we were looking at with the top 10 quarterbacks,
yeah,
what was that? A rating?
They're grading. They're how they graded out.
Yeah,
average.
Like, what did you say? All of them, but
there was 1 or 2 that were, I think, could declare, and it was questionable. But I think he was the only one that was definitely coming back.
Yeah,
from that list. Yeah.
Yeah. Which to me, that's a lot of big names leaving. Yep. And it's not unrealistic for him to get a little buzz.
Yeah, sure.
No,
especially if we come out and beat Penn State. Like if we come out and beat Penn State and he's got 400 yards rushing and 800 yards passing, he'll be on the high. And he threw to Hudson Clement for 500 of them. And
yes. Yeah. No.
You what?
Get you a little buzz.
You just made me think of which we've touched about before. Maybe we should make this like a little part that we talk about every now and again, which is Mountaineers in the NFL and how they're doing. But it made me think of the 70-63 shootout with Geno, and then watching Geno the other night play against
49ers.
No, who were
Cowboys.
they playing the other night?
Cowboys.
Yeah,
Cowboys.
He had 4 touchdowns.
Looked really good.
He looked
really good. Felt bad.
I got him on my fantasy team, so it helped me out. That was awesome.
I think the pressure went out, near the end of the game where they just couldn't block, their pass rush. But man, he looked good.
He's so accurate.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy how accurate he is.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm like so happy for him too, because like he has waited and he finally got his shot. Yeah. And he hasn't like let anybody down really. I mean, they're not like Super Bowl contenders, but his play is consistent. He's not, what's his name? Zach Wilson. Jesus Christ.
That's hilarious that you mentioned him. Yeah. So Geno was on the Jets. He was a starter for the Jets, and then like a linebacker knocked him out and like broke his jaw.
Yeah.
He was going to be
or something like that.
And broke his jaw in the locker room.
And then they got rid of Geno somehow out of that. I don't know what happened there, but now
he ended up with the Giants after that, right?
Yeah.
Something. It was really weird how that all played out.
The Jets are and have been a dumpster fire. I feel like
they always will be. They always will be.
Don't get me wrong. I hate to see anybody hurt, and I know that really had to have severely sucked for every Jets fan to watch Rodgers go down on the first series. But there was part of me that's like, that's kind of funny.
He comes out with the American flag. It's just like, I mean, what's crazy about that is Amazon, NBC, and ESPN all were like, we are going to have the Jets on primetime every single week. And we've just seen poor Zach Wilson just getting embarrassed every single week.
They're on their on their 4th quarterback that's now Wilson again. They went through.
And the coach has got to be turning around, looking on the bench and going, God, Zach, get in.
Bottom ticker was like, Jets named Zach Wilson starting quarterback again. He was previously benched. Zach Wilson denies reports that he was reluctant to start again.
Yeah. And then it was like saying that, that essentially the only reason that they're starting him now is because he must have went to them and said, like, I need to start to show that I'm not reluctant to start, because he's a free agent, right? Like,
Right.
after this year, so he's just trying to like find his next home. He doesn't want to be like a bad locker room guy.
I don't know what I don't know what kind of person he is, but my God, I feel bad for him because he is just. It's been rough go.
It's been awful. And like you can imagine the coach being like, "Hey, Zach, you're getting the call next week." He's like, "Really? Are we doing this again?
How many games are in this season?"
Also, what like there is no real way. Not many more.
I imagine him like laying in like a fetal position, like with a towel around him, like, no, please.
Like, there's no realistic way that Aaron Rodgers is trying to come back and play, right? Like, there's nothing to play for. Like, I mean, it's one thing if they're in playoff contention or arguably in playoff contention. I don't think that's the like. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know, man. He's a guy that you can't deny, like, his talent and his product, and he's an incredible quarterback. But
he's a weird son of a bitch.
He is a strange bird.
He really is.
Sure.
I think he wants to come back just to prove
a
that.
Point.
Yeah.
Well, he's always trying to prove points. You know, and I'm like,
if you're the owner, you're like,
rush it
no.
back and fucking blow it up again, just to
Comes
be
out
like,
with the American flag and it ruptures it on the way out with the flag. Like, not even in a football play.
I don't know why I'm laughing. It's terrible, but it's kind of funny. Again.
Man, that was great, and it's honestly the primetime games this year in the NFL have been awful. That Seahawks and Cowboys game was probably like
the better,
the best,
any of
the
them
best
have been
primetime game that we've had. I mean, right now the Steelers and the
Patriots.
whoever are playing. What are the two quarterbacks'
right?
names? Name the two quarterbacks.
Well, Pickett is hurt, right?
Pickett.
No, Pickett's hurt.
And Mac Jones is
Jones is benched. It's like I can't name either of them.
Yeah, I did. I'll tell you, I did watch the. I watched the, which was very interesting, right? Of game the other night. The Chiefs and help me out, fellas.
The Packers.
The Packers, with total like last 2 minute, like what are the referees doing? Like non-calls and calls, where you're like, what is happening right now? That pass interference might be that they didn't call. Might be the most like obvious pass interference call I've ever seen.
Bad.
Like
no, it can't be the most obvious one because it was the Saints and Vikings.
Oh, the playoff game? Yeah, that's true. But I mean, this dude like jumped on his back, went through it, right? And then you're just like, that the ball would have been at the 4-yard line, for the Chiefs. And it's the Chiefs. Like, I mean, they would have had to score and get it too.
Yeah, that's got to be part of the script, right?
Well, I'd also be pissed if I'm the NFL, right? Because I'm like, dude, I want that to happen, right? Like, we want to keep extending the viewership on this. Like, make it tight, get it, whatever.
But I think the NFL is like, I don't know. I mean, the more and more, like, you read about these conspiracies and stuff that they have these scripts and all this stuff that it's entertainment.
Yeah.
It's like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I feel like the Packers are, even the Chiefs are like that team that got Mahomes and Kelsey and all that stuff going on. But the Packers are still like one of those teams where they want them to be in the mix too. Because they've always, I don't know. They're.
I know what you're saying.
One of the OGs.
It's like a blue blood, right? It's
yeah.
Vince Lombardi. It's like the
NFL,
origin, genesis. Yeah. So, quick shout out. I don't know if y'all watched it or not. I actually watched it from Houston, Texas, because Brandy showed a side of her that I had never seen, which was North Marion Husky cheerleader. But watch that double A state championship.
Yes,
what North Marion, Fairmont State. What an amazing, what a game. What a game.
That game was incredible.
Unbelievable.
Wow. I mean, the fake punt doesn't get talked about.
That's what I mean. I was like, this is a Rich Rod fake punt, man. This is like Georgia, where it's like the cojones to call that right there. And then to get that amazing one-handed catch to
I
even
didn't
have a
know they
chance
had
to go
like
down.
reviews in high
I
school.
know.
Yes, that was awesome. And then he was
Really?
on like the ESPN top 10 for that day as the number one play. But I mean, that was the right, in my mind, that was the right call, right? Because I'm like, you haven't stopped them. You got to just go for the win
Oh
here.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Might
Win
as
or
well.
lose on your own terms. You haven't stopped them
Old
all
school
game.
Dana Holgerson call.
Yeah, and I felt because they kept talking about their kicker, right? Like he's a rookie, it's his first year kicking. It's raining. I'm like, that poor kid's gonna get up there and miss that
Oh,
extra
no.
point. Thankfully,
Yeah.
he took that heat off of him, and did
Yeah.
it. But man, that was a hell of a game, and kudos to both schools, but also just West Virginia for putting some product out there. I mean, that was good to see. I think obviously we're never going to be a Texas or any of these states that just produce because of the population, but man, you can tell the game has gotten better
Yeah,
For sure.
in that state. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you can
I
tell
think that
just
there's-
the number of guys playing in college and on WVU that are.
And I
home
don't
state
know if
products.
it has. I'm not real sure about this, but I'm just assuming that I think that a lot of the old school coaches that were with these teams and these schools for 30, 40 years are starting to move out. So you're getting a lot of younger coaches that are like they know how to do the right things.
They're actually coaches, right?
Yeah,
Like they're not
right.
just like
Yes.
gym teacher who's
Yeah.
coaching football. Yeah.
Right.
I'm pretty sure both of those coaches for North Marion and Fairmont were our age. Like,
Yeah,
Uh,
Darren. Yeah, one is Brandy's cousin, Darren, who's pretty young. I mean, and the crazy part is when they were talking about the staff during that game, and they mentioned like they have like legitimate offensive, coordinator, defensive, like they have legitimate staffs that have assignments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, when I was watching it, that's what I told Jessica that. I said, this looks like a football game.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
you go and watch smaller
Defense
schools.
on both
Yeah.
teams, I think,
But-
where the offenses were really good.
But still, I mean, like just the whole procedure of everything looked
Crisp, clean.
crisp.
Yeah.
It looked good.
Yeah.
So-
it wasn't Eddie Williams and Jack McCord out there, but
Right.
it looked okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't.
Lawrence.
Oh man.
well,
If you're listening, Eddie, I love you.
I'll take no Jack McCord blasphemy.
Yeah. I was well, hey. Listen, a dude who coaches defensive line while chewing on a stogie will always be my friend. So R.I.P.
This has been quite a ride tonight, boys.
Really has. My adult
We're-
ADD is really
we're in
full swing.
the woods, but we're in the weeds here. Yeah. Well, listen, let's do a bowl pick'em. We'll play it maybe for next episode. We can.
How do you
we'll
want
just,
to do it? How do you want to
do we
prepare
do
for it?
all of them, or do we
Do
only
it
do like
live?
power?
I say let's do obviously our game. Maybe we do Big 12. I mean, there's an interest there. So maybe we look at the Big 12 games. We do obviously our game, and then we do kind of New Year's Eve and the playoff.
Okay.
New
But
Year's
yeah,
Six.
I would
start
say
from our bowl and go on.
if that sounds good to me.
That'll work.
I would say make your pick ahead of time, and we'll just like explain it.
Well, I'm
whenever-
gonna wait to see like my at
He's
least
gonna
my
make
score
his picks
prediction.
after he hears.
I want to hear
what
if
we
Drake
pick.
May. No, I want to know who's playing and who's not for these teams, right? Like
Yeah.
what? Because I feel like that's going to roll out in the next week or so. Is going to be who's sitting out.
Yeah,
for
because
these
these guys are starting to prepare for these games now, so
Yeah.
they got to get their personnel in order. So they got to figure out who's going to be taking the snaps. So yeah, we should know a lot more next week about who's going to
Yeah.
be playing,
And
and that'll
what's-
clear it up.
So we've got the Cup tomorrow. So
Mhm.
good luck to the Mounties. Just looking to see just real quick what we have on tap on the basketball side now that Kerr's going to be back. What's our next game there? Because we can maybe get a feel for if that's going to really help or not. I can't hurt. I can't imagine.
crazy if he was like just like Steph Curry.
we
Like, he
starting,
steps on the court and it's just like raining
yeah.
threes, and we like
We
completely
don't
different
lose
team.
a game the rest of the year.
We played Drexel on Saturday at the Coliseum.
When do we start conference play?
We start conference play. Ooh, well, pre-conference play, we've got Ohio State
Ooh,
in Cleveland. on December 30th. And then right after that, next game is actually here in Houston against UH. I'm going to go to that one, January 6th.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
going to be brutal, dude.
Yeah, that's
You're going to go down there and you're going to watch us lose in Houston to a Hail Mary and to the number 1 team in the country.
I'm a glutton for Mountaineer punishment. I'm just trading. I'm trading myself.
You've already won the award for toughest Mountaineer fan. You don't have to keep proving it to us.
Right. Like, people don't even say anything to you when you walk into the stadium with a West Virginia gear on. They're like, that is
not
non-threatening.
At the Fertitta Center. They're just like, yeah, this is going to be bad.
All right. All right, boys. Well, it was fun. I guess
let's go win a soccer championship.
Let's go win a soccer. When's the
Keep
next
that finger on the pulse.
It always is.
All right. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
All right. Later, fellas.